We've spoken about how the nature of the tikun is that we move from tohu to tikun. The movement from tohu to tikun is the same movement from nikudim to berudim. Nikudim is where you have the Esser spheros, or really the seven lower spheros, as we've discussed, are separate from each other. Each is self-contained and each is only itself. And because each is only itself, it wants to be everything all by itself. And that creates tohu, which is a reality of each of the spheros trying to be the be all and end all of everything. It's also what we've said and we've talked about is it's the idea of ani emloch, right? Each sphere is saying I'm in charge, I'm in charge, I'm in charge, and I'm everything, and I'm going to rule, right? Which within the Arizal, right? Within the Arizal, the Olam Hanakudos, the place where the Shir takes place, this Olam Hatohu, is really an expression or a manifestation of the sphere of Malchus of Adam Kadmon. We're leaving aside what exactly that is. It's overly technical and not exactly what we're trying to do here. But again, it's the idea of Malchus, the idea of materiality, the idea of separateness. Each element becomes separate from each other, and that produces shevirah, not necessarily in the sense of it creates shevirah or causes shevirah, because nothing is really caused by anything, right? It's all just Ratzon Hashem making things happen the way they are. But the nature of the shevirah is that it's something that's unlike HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's misaligned from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes all of the individual parts and contains them all within himself in a harmonious way, so to speak. And in Olam Hato, you have the individual parts, each trying to be separate and independent from each other. And that's the opposite of what the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. So that's in the nature of shevirah. It's not tikun, it's shevirah, it's unsustainable. It's misaligned with the MS, with the reality of with the truth of how reality is structured. The truth of how reality is structured is just the Ratzon Hashem. Ratzon Hashem is an expression of yichud, an expression of being able to encompass all parts together where they complement each other and coexist with each other. So Nikudim is shevirah. And then we said tikun is a rectification of that, because the reality of tikun is now each of the spheres are interacting with the others. Each sphere is now revealed as a full system of Esser spheros. So chesed is not just chesed, but chesed also contains aspects of gevura and Tiferes and Netzach, Hod Yesod, Malchus, etc. And so too gevura contains aspects of chesed. So every individual sphere sees itself in all the other spheres and has itself in the other spheres and has the other spheres in it. And that, we said, is the reality of Olam HaBerudim. Berudim, instead of Nikudim, of having like dots, polka dots, individual circles of each sphere, now you have everything broken open and mingling and splotchy with each other, right? So the red mixes with the blue and the green and the yellow, and so all the colors mix together instead of each color being its own. Right. Once upon a time when I used to like paint seriously, right? You put all the colors on a palette. Huh?
We should do class. Oh no, right. I saw you.
Why you paint? You used to...
No, but one day I'm gonna.
Oh, one day, okay. So, but right, you take a palette and you put each blob of paint on the palette, and then as you paint, all of you start mixing paints and bring them together and whatever. So now, not each one is not self-contained, but each one is now blending into the others. Into one unit. So that's Olam HaBerudim. That's the Olam Hatikun, where everything has sustaining power, has lasting power, because nothing is trying to be the be all and end all on its own. It's all trying to be mutually supportive and interdependent with each other. So now he's going to talk about a slightly different aspect of this, connecting this to one of the sheimos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Vizel Ara Chadash. So this new or, this new expression of the Ratzon Hashem, which comes out now from the Or Ein Sof and is now revealed in this reality called Olam Hatikun, Nikra b'Shem Mah HaChadash. It's referred to with the name Mah HaChadash, right? The new Ma. Okay, there's two different things going on over here when we refer to Ma. One is one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We've said many times that Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is the sort of rubric for everything, right? we've said this many times that everything is Yud Kei Vav Keis, right? The whole all of reality is Yud Kei Vav Keis. There are yichudim and meditations to do where you see Yud Kei, where you can just experience reality as Yud Kei Vav Keis and experience experiences as just different aspects of Yud Kei Vav Keis. Everything is built out of Yud Kei Vav Kei. But as you get, but that means that Yud Kei Vav Kei itself is built of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and each aspect of Yud Kei Vav Kei is also Yud Kei Vav Kei. And so what you have is that each letter of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, each of those can be expressed or can be unpacked into a more expanded form of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And so we've talked about, and we'll talk about much more later on, 4 sheimos miluyim, 4 expanded names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's really just Yud Kei Vav Kei, but written out in expanded form. So instead of Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey letters, you write out the letters, right? So Yud, Vav, Daled, Yud. Hey can be spelled several different ways, but Hey Yud or Hey Aleph or Hey spells Hey. And then Vav can be spelled several different ways. It can be spelled Vav Yud Vav. It can be spelled Vav Aleph Vav. It can be spelled Vav Vav. All of those spell the letter Vav. And then again, Hey can be spelled many different ways, but you spell it out. And there are 4 ways that the Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey can be spelled out. One is called the Shem Mah, which is the unpacking with the Shein miluyim that corresponds to the Yud, the highest aspect of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Shem Mah is Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey written out in full form in a way that the letters equal 72. Okay, so it's Yud, Vav, Daled, Hey, Yud, Vav, Hey, Yud equals 72. Okay, so Av, Shem Av, Ayin Beis. Okay. The second Shem is known as, right? Okay. The second Shem is known as Shem Sag, Samach Gimel, and that's Yud Vav Daled, Hey Yud, Vav Aleph Vav instead of Vav Yud Vav. So you're taking away 9 from 72, and then Hey Yud. And so you have 72, you take away 9 because you switch the Yud for an Aleph, you end up with 63. And that's Sag. Samach Gimel, Sag, 63. The fourth one, which corresponds to the Vav, is known as the Shem Mah. Mah is 45, and it's written out so that it equals 45. It's Yud, Vav, Daled, Hey, yes, Hey, Vav, Vav, Hey. Okay, that's 45. Ma. And then the fourth one, which corresponds to
how is that 45?
Yud Vav Daled is 20. Hey is 10.
Another 20.
Is 10.
Right, plus the last
right,
one
is 20, so that's 40.
And then Vav is 12.
Right, so sorry, it's Hey Aleph. Hey Aleph, so that's 12. Plus 12, plus Vav Aleph Vav is 13, and that gives you 45.
Okay.
And then the final Hey is Shem Ban, Beis Nun 52, and so then you have Yud Vav Daled, Hey, and Vav Vav, right, and that gives you 52. All right, 20, 20, and then 12. Okay. So in any case, so the Shem Mah corresponds to the Vav. Okay. And that Vav and that Shem Mah, that refers that correlates to Olam Hatikun. Okay. So that meaning the Ratzon Hashem that creates Olam Hatikun is the Ratzon Hashem that's expressed through or encapsulated or communicated through the Shem Mah. Okay, but he's going to explain a little bit more why the Shem Mah, which is a word also, right? Ma means what, right? It corresponds to particularly to the Olam Hatikun. So he explains Harome. Okay, Nikra b'Shem Mah HaChadash. So this light, this Ratzon that creates the Olam Hatikun, it's referred to with the Shem Mah hachadash, haromez al hischadshus olamos shenasa yedei bechinas Ma shehi anava. And this hints at the idea that there's a chidush, there's a renewal of the olamos that's happening. That's what tikun is, right? From shevirah we're going to tikun. There's a renewal of everything. There was tikun before. Then Nekudos comes along, Tohu comes along, the shevirah takes place, so everything breaks. Everything that was good before is now broken. We talked about why it's important for everything to break. That's intentional on the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then what has been broken is now rebuilt. So there's hischadshus here, right? So part of the message, and we talked about this, is there's always constant hischadshus, right? Things break, and then they can be fixed, and nothing can be so broken that it can't be fixed. So there's a hischadshus taking place, and the way the hischadshus takes place, the way you fix the thing that's broken, is through Ma. It's through Ma. Ma implies and expresses the idea of anava, of humility. Shekol olam mevatel atzmo lechaver, and that's what Olam Hatikun is, because every aspect, every part of the Olam Hatikun is being mevatel itself to the other, right? Chesed says, yes, I am chesed, but gevurah is very important, and I'm mevatel some part of my chesedness in favor of gevurah, so that the two work together, they synthesize. And gevurah says the same thing. They all say that they're all saying the same thing. Instead of saying ani emlo, each one is saying ani mevatel, right? And through this is how you get to the tikun. So I just want to look at in the commentary in Os Yud Aleph, because he explains this idea of anava connected to the Shem Mah a little bit more deeply. He says, Ha'or shel Olam Hatikun, the light, the Ratzon Hashem, the expression and Giloy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that takes place in the Olam Hatikun, Nimshach mishem Havaya b'miluy alfin. It comes from, it's a continuation of, it's an expression of the Shem Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, b'miluy alfin, expressed, written out with olives. Ha'olama, which equals 45. Kizeh, like this, right? Yud Vav Dalid, Hey Aleph, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Aleph. That's 45. That's Milu da Alfin, right? Because the letters are written out using olives instead of vavs or instead of themselves. Okay. Haromez ala nova. And this term, this way of writing the Shem Havaya, this Giloy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hints at the idea of anava. Ubir b'sefer ber Maim Chaim. Sha'adam nikra b'shem Ma, that Adam, human beings, are also correlate or correspond to this name, the Shem Ma, Adam gematria Ma, because right, Adam, the word Adam is also 45. Romez al Shem Havai b'milu alfin kizeh yud hey vav hey k'mavur lehelim b'akdama lomar kizeh ikar shekula kizeh ikar sichlo v'avodah lahavin mahu. The whole idea of a human being is that we're here, unlike every other creature who doesn't have any sense of not being exactly what they're supposed to be, right? Everything else in the world has no bechira, right? The idea being that they are what they're supposed to be, and they always are exactly what they're supposed to be, and they have no sense that I can ever be anything other than what I'm supposed to be. I am what I am because that's what I'm supposed to be. But human beings don't have that, right? Human beings are constantly trying to figure out, what am I? Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be accomplishing? Should I be doing more? Should I be doing less? Am I achieving my goals? Are my goals even good goals? Should I have different goals? That's a quintessentially human experience. To ask what about ourselves is a human experience, and so Ma correlates and relates to and is merames to Adam. V'hu tikun shevirah, and this Adam is the tikun of the shevirah. Sha'isa b'shvil shekol echad amar ani emlo kenoda, because the shevirah took place, as we've said, because each sphera, each aspect of reality is saying ani emlo, I'm in charge, I'm in charge, I'm in charge. V'hu bechinas hagvos hamara. Because each one is trying to rule over those that are below it and to rule over those that are on the same level as it, because everything wants to be in charge. V'hu chas v'shalom tachlis shevirah v'harisa b'chol mikol kol. And this is the essence of what shevirah is, right? For each and every aspect of creation to be totally self-standing and totally full of gaiva and ego and yeshus and self, which is the opposite of being filled with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Because each and every aspect of creation is saying, I'm the be-all and end-all of everything. The tikun olam, and the correction for this, the way we fix this is Shem Mah hachadash. That's through this Shem Mah. Shekol echad omer ma'ani u'machayi hevel varik. Because each aspect of creation, now that you're injecting, you're infusing reality with the idea of ma. What does what mean? What implies? I don't know. What implies there's something bigger out there than me that I don't understand? And I'm trying to understand. I have a role to play, but I don't know what that role is, and I'm trying to figure it out. Instead of saying I know everything and I am everything and everything is subservient to me, which is shevirah, Ma in and of itself is the communication of this idea, is the injection of this phenomenon of a sense of shiftless, a sense of, I don't know, the world's a big place. And there are lots of people out there, and there are lots of things I could be doing with my time, and there's lots of ways to go and lots of paths to take, and it's all very confusing, and I don't know what. That in and of itself is the root of saying I'm not the be-all and end-all of everything. V'hu anikra adam hashalem chushban ma. And this is this reality, right? The whole idea of being uncertain about what we are in creation and what our place is and what we're supposed to be doing. That's what a person is. That's what a human being is. That's what makes a human being as opposed to a rock, or as opposed to a dog. A rock has no sense of there's something other than being a rock, or I don't know if I'm being a good rock. Maybe I should be a better rock. No, you just are what you are. And the same is true for everything else out there. For everything else out there except human beings. Human beings are quintessential expressions of this idea of ma. There's nothing better than anava. There's no midah, there's no characteristic that exists within this world that is as good as anava. And correspondingly, there's nothing as dangerous and as destructive as gaiva, as ego, as destructive ego, not self-esteem. Self-esteem is important. Gaiva is self-esteem run amok, right? So why is anava so powerful? Why is anava so useful and good? Because anava is the very essence of saying there's something bigger than me. As soon as I say that, I've opened up space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When I'm not saying that, then I am the ultimate. But as soon as I say there's an ultimate other than me, and I'm asking what? I'm confused. I'm smaller than something bigger than me, and that's why I have these questions. So that immediately, again, there might be many, many steps until that gets fully developed and like in a sophisticated and fully expressed way. But now you at least already have a handhold to the idea that there is something bigger out there. I am not the ultimate. I recognize that I'm not the ultimate. If I was the ultimate, I wouldn't have these questions. By having these questions, I'm making myself at least one rung down from the ultimate, and I want to understand my place relative to that ultimate. So now there's space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we can begin with something. Prior to that, there's pure shevirah. Now there's something to work with. So the injection, the idea that Olam Hatikun is created through the gilui of the Shem Mah is that what is the Shem Mah expressing? The Shem Mah is expressing exactly this idea of shiftless, of confusion, of uncertainty, and so on. That all produces a sense of interdependence, right? If I'm not the ultimate, then I need you, and I have something to offer, but I also need. And now that creates interdependence. That creates the reality of tikun. That creates the space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to exist and be recognized as an ultimate, which is the tikun in and of itself. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes the ultimate, then now it's very relatively easy for me to recognize that everything within HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to somehow be part of that yichud, and that means we're all enmeshed with each other, and there's me and you and me, and I need you and you need me, and we're all interdependent, because I'm recognizing that we're all part of something that's bigger than us, and so we're all on the same level, and we're all within that thing, and we're all parts of that thing that is actually completely and totally unified, and it's Makomo Shalom, and we're not outside of it. So all of that is coming through, or is an expression of this idea of the Shem Mah. So Okay, fine. So that's that. So that's this idea that the tikun, the Olam Hatikun is a reflection or is an expression of the Shem Mah. Also, just again, just very briefly, and not to get into it too deeply, but so Olam Hatikun, right, which is really, we'll talk about it later, which we mentioned it, Olam Berudim and Atzilus is an expression also of the parts of Zer and we'll I'm just throwing out terms, and we don't have to know what they mean right now. We'll get to them eventually in the Sefer. But Olam Hatikun and Atzilus is also corresponds to Olam Hatzilus. Olam Hatzilus, if you think about it in terms of Yud Ke Vav Ke, because Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? Everything is Yud Ke Vav Ke. So if I take the entirety of creation, if I take all the Olamos and I arrange them top to bottom, so what I end up with is Olam Hatzilus in a certain sense, or Zer Ampin in a certain sense, corresponds to the Vav in the Yud Ke Vav Ke, because Orin Sof Orin Sof is the Yod, Adam Kadmon is the Hey, Atzilus becomes the Vav, and then the final Hey of Yud Ke Vav Ke is Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya all together. There are other ways to arrange this, but for practical purposes, the idea is that this reality, this the vav is corresponding to where we were talking before, that the vav corresponds to the Shem Mah, right? So atzilus tikun berudim is an expression again of the Shem Mah. The way the Arizal describes it, that atzilus really is formed, the shevirah is formed by the final hey. And then Atzilus Tikun is an elevation of the nikudim of that broken space that's formed by the final Hey, which is separated individualistic materiality, and then the Vav, which is Shem Mah, comes in afterwards, even though it's technically higher in the order, but it comes in afterwards, and that's the Tikun. So whatever. We don't have to make more sense of that than what we said. It'll make more sense much later on. Part of all of this Torah is that it's very much not linear. It's both linear and circular at the same time. So you come back to concepts later on that you have no idea what they were before, and then like things click later on, and that's just the nature of the material. The truth is that like core Sifrei Kabbalah and core Sifrei Penimiyus, they're not even structured in sort of a logical order. They're structured in ways that they constantly are circling back on themselves and repeating themselves and saying the same thing in different ways all the time. And so you get halfway through a sefer and now it says something, and now you realize everything you understood at the beginning of the sefer needs to be relearned through the lens of what you just understood, because it totally changes the whole picture, even though you understood it the first time around, but now you understand it in a totally different way because of what you're seeing later. So not everything gets built linearly. So likewise over here, like we're throwing out the terminology, these terms will probably make sense later on. Okay, fine. Just to continue. Okay, v'yesh l'das. So page ayin ches. V'yesh l'das. Shebahatikun shenasa v'es brias olam. At the time, so now when this tikun takes place, right? Olam Hatikun, we have this giloy of the Shem Mah. The Olam Hatikun takes place. The spheres are now operating in concert with each other, instead of them being misaligned with the Ratzon Hashem and therefore manifesting in the idea of klipa, of sort of a materiality that is separate from and hides the presence and infinitude and all-encompassing essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now everything is Masukan, right? So if everything is Masukan, that means that now there's an ability to grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the spheres, right? To grasp the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within materiality, because materiality is not the opposite of HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. It's actually a very good giloy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, all the different aspects of reality are working with each other. And if I look at reality, right, su'u marome nechem, right, you look at creation like the Rambam says, you look at creation like the Pasuk says, right, you look at the heavens and you say, mi bara ela, immediately looking at reality, and the Olam Hatikun says, God's at play here, right? So there's something going on over here that orchestrates all of this, that makes all of this work together this way. Something, call it what you want, right? But you don't have to call it God if you're uncomfortable with calling it God. But what it says is there's a unity here of all of these things that are somehow acting in concert with each other, and that thing, whatever name you want to give it, that's a Kadosh Baruch, right? That's the ultimate. So although Olam Hatikun is now instead of the
He's saying that by creating the world, when he says Bria Olam, does he mean the actual creation of this world?
um yes, in a certain sense. Yes, yes, we could say yes, right? Meaning our world is a reflection of Olam Hatikun. We don't live in Olam Hatorah anymore.
Oh, okay, so he was okay.
Meaning, but also we said earlier that, like, again, if you go back to Bereshis, so Berias Olam begins after Va'aretz Haisa Sohu, right? The shevirah takes place, and then Sheshis Mei Bereshis happens. So our world, yeah, but also the world's Atzilus all the way down. It's all tikun, right? With to varying degrees, right? More material tikun versus less material tikun, but it's all tikun. Despite that fact, nevertheless, although now we have tikun, not everything, not all of the nitzotzos, not all of the sparks, the like little bits of the reflection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world that fell into klipa during the shevirah, they're not all fixed. Avodah shel kiyam HaTorah v'mitzvos behemshech zman shel har b'shanim. And in order to accomplish that, right, so the shevirah took place. The shevirah is no longer taking place, but the shevirah took place. Meaning, to put it slightly differently, there's an incredible way. There's a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be seen, appreciated, known, recognized, fully revealed in absolute perfection, right? Total perfection. That didn't happen because shevirah happened. So that perfect reflection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that perfect ability to really fully, truly see HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the extent that a nivra, to the extent that a creation is capable of seeing the thing that it's part of, that fell into klipa. But then the tikun takes place. And now there's an ability to appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? We don't live in a shevirah world. We live in a world in which we actually can, if we pay attention, see it, appreciate it, value it, recognize it, feel it, etc., experience it, right? We live in a world in which, again, depending on what things float your boat, right? But a fantastic steak, or an amazing tefillah, or a daf of Gemara, or the rabbi's speech on Shabbos morning, probably not, but whatever, right? Or a conversation with your wife, or a flower, or your kid smiling, whatever it happens to. There are things that within the Olam Hatikun, there are plenty of things that alert us to and through which we can experience dvekus, right? Avodah begashmis, right? That everything around us we can experience dvekus through. However, there is so much more to see, and all of that stuff has fallen into klipa. That's the higher ability to see much higher aspects of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the way up there. That's where the shevirah took place. Then there was a tikun that took place. The tikun, though, is at a lower level of clarity than what was where the shevirah took place. So although now there's an ability to
tikun. This is a random jump in, but is that what a Ruach HaKodesh should be? If you get to a level where you get that clarity, like you come to a complete level of, well, or if not that clarity, just about, like you see everything through that correct lens. You kind of were masaking your own world to a level where when you're seeing this, you're actually seeing everything coinciding with each other.
Yes, but there are gradations and levels to this, right? So the Arizal describes how really, in essence, Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh is the ability to appreciate that every single thing that I'm experiencing and see and encounter and hear and taste and smell and feel and so on and so forth in this world is telling me something, and to appreciate what it's telling me. So that's still a lower level of Nevuah / Ruach HaKodesh, because anything that the Olam Hatikun in this world is telling me is not everything, right? Because the shevirah still has fixing to do, right? Or still has to be fixed. So, meaning, Trying to.
Meaning to say, we had, let's say, back in a little while ago, you made like a little Fabrenga, and then we were talking about the Ribbenzer, right?
Yeah.
The way he was able to see things, or he helped the kid that was blind see, or
Yeah.
this, that, or the other. So that's what I mean. Like being able, a person that's living here, but not really living here anymore.
Yes, so 100%, yes, exactly so. But again, there's levels to this, right? I mean, so someone living reality the way the Ribnitzer lived reality, is yeah, that's operating at a level of again, we could use whatever terminology makes someone comfortable. We could say Ruach Kodesh, we could say
right. I don't know
right,
if it's
we could
right
say
terminology.
Nebuah, whatever. It's fine.
The reason this whole thing stemmed is because in my mind, the way we're learning it, that there's the shevirah and then there's the tikun. So like, I mean, I guess I don't know if we covered it or if it was just my mind, but it's just like once you get to a certain level, kind of, I guess you die, and then I mean, you could also die not from that, but if you reach a certain level of tikun, then you're like your work is done here.
That's also true.
So this is what I'm trying to balance over
okay,
here. When
so
you're, I forgot what you already were talking about, but you just started talking about with right. There's still, so I don't know.
all right, to maybe this is a helpful mashal. I don't know how perfect of a mashal this is, but it might help for just the concept we're talking about. If I have an electric current, right? If I have an electric current, and I have enough ampage in my electric current, to run a 5 million watt light bulb. Okay. And that would allow, so the light bulb allows me to appreciate how powerful the electric current is, right? It allows me to really see that's this much current, right? I'm not an electrician, so this could be a very bad analogy, but right, you need a 5 million watt light bulb to see how much current you really have. But the 5 million watt light bulb has been smashed to smithereens. What I do have is I have a 200 watt light bulb. Right. So if I stick a 200 watt light bulb in the socket,
assuming that it works, but even so, you're limited to 200.
I'm limited to 200. Now I'm seeing the current, but I'm only seeing it at 200 watts. And then if I and then what can I do? I can try to get a 500 watt. I can get a 100,000 watt. I can get a 200,000 watt. I can get a million watt. Right? I can go up and up eventually to try and get so the tikun that happened is I had a 5 million watt light bulb. The 5 million watt light bulb is broken, sheer. I'm going to be masaking the light bulb, but the tikun is only a 200 watt light bulb. Right? So although I'm seeing the current, I'm not seeing what I could appreciate of the current with the 5 million watt light bulb. I still need to get to the 5 million watt light bulb. I mean, there's work to do still. Although tikun has happened, the current is illuminating the bulb, but it's not illuminating at 5 million watts.
So like the Rubinster got like 4 million.
Yeah, something like right, exactly. No one gets to 5 million watts. That's also important, right?
That's what we've discussed, and that's where I was. Yeah, okay.
Right. And we talked about that last time. I think also that the Leshem says that specifically Moshe Rabbeinu had to be the person that Hashem said upanai lo yira'u, that you cannot see the 5 million watts. Because if he had told that to anyone other than Moshe, we would think that, oh yeah, but it's possible. Someone could see the 5 million. No, if Moshe can't see the 5 million watts, no one can see the 5 million watts, right? But we're working to try and get to 5 million watts. That's the ultimate. That's the idea. And the truth is that eventually we will, and that's the most Mashiach, really, right? That we now have. We built a 5 million watt light bulb. But that's what we're trying to do, right? So avodah shel kiyam HaTorah mitzvah. So what do you? So in order to build the 5 million watt light bulb, even though we live in an Olam Hatikun where we can see some of the current, you need Torah and mitzvahs. You need the avodah of Torah and mitzvahs behemshach zman shel harba shanim over the course of many, many, many years, in order to slowly, gradually build the 5 million watt light bulb. In order to put back together the shivrei kelim and the nitzotzim shenafu tocha klipa, which have fallen into klipa. Because through those nitzotzos that have fallen into klipa, that's where the klipa gets its power from, right? So now, and the light bulb analogy now kind of falls apart. But the idea is that, right, we're trying to pick up all the pieces of the broken, so to speak. We're trying to pick up all the pieces of the broken 5 million watt light bulb and glue it back together, right? And each piece of the 5 million watt light bulb, again, not immediately, right? We're going from a 200 watt light bulb. We're going to try and build the 250 watt light bulb, and I'm picking up each piece of the 250 watt light bulb. Each time I pick up a piece and I put it in the spot where it's supposed to be. So now I'm pulling a little bit more of the ampage of the current, right? I'm revealing a little bit more of the power of the current. And when I put all of the 250 watt pieces back together, now I can try the 500 watt and start putting those pieces back together, and on and on and on and on. And each time, right? And avodah b'Torah mitzvah. What is avodah in Torah mitzvos? We've talked about this. Avodah in Torah mitzvos is avodah begashmius, is seeing how each and every aspect of the material world, which is klipa, i.e., broken pieces of light bulb that don't appear to me like light bulb, right? A drink of water is not obviously an experience of Elokus. So Torah and mitzvos, a bracha on it, a kavana with the bracha on it, drinking the water for the right reasons, at the right time, in the right way, whatever it is, that in and of itself turns that water now not from a broken piece of light bulb to something that is actually illuminating the next wattage, a little bit of the next wattage. And I do that with enough cups of water, and I do that with enough sandwiches, and I do that with enough suits, and I do that with enough houses and enough cars and enough brachos and enough pieces of Torah and enough tefillos and so on and so forth. Then I put together a light bulb again. Right? That's the idea of being mevar the nitzotzos, which we talked about before. But what we're doing now is from a place of tikun. Right now we have a stable place of tikun to start doing it from, because we have a 200 watt light bulb and something is being revealed to us. And each and every day, new birur and new tikun is happening through the avodah of each and every individual Jew. Each and every individual Jew, b'chol tefillah v'tefillah, in each and every tefillah that they daven, u'misaknem nitzotzim yuchadim hashaychim la'oso hayom, and each person is then being misaken, is then being mavar, is clarifying, is demonstrating particular nitzotzos that are applicable to that person on that day in that particular situation. La'oso tefillah, la'oso adam. Valken amru chachmeinu, and this is why Chazal say, Shem nechsar la'adam tefillah achas. If a person misses a single tefillah, harei zehu ma'aves shelo yuchal eskon. Then it's a distortion that can't be fixed. What is it? This is harsh words by Chazal about missing zman tefillah, really, and or missing tefillah entirely, and it's related to discussions in the Gemara and Brachos about tashlumin, making up tefillas, and etc. But the point of it, right? The point of it is, and the way at least it's being used here and it's used in Penimiyus is that each tefillah, each mitzvah, each moment of learning, each moment of avodah begashmius also, right? Not just learning and davening, but anything for each individual person on any given day is there to do something different, right? Shachris on March 23rd, 2026 for Shlomo Pill has never existed before. That Shachris never. I davened Shachris yesterday, and whatever I accomplished with Shachris, whatever I was mavar, whatever piece of light bulb I put back yesterday, that was that piece. But Shachris today, because it's a different day,
so that's why nobody's going to get to the 5 million watts, because nobody can manage to pick up every piece. At some point,
correct. So So in a very, very big picture, this is really where what the Arizal then builds the idea of Gilgulim on. Right. So no one is going to pick up can fully pick up all the pieces in one lifetime and say it's actually impossible. By definition, it's impossible, because the pieces of my light bulb are the full expanse of all of reality. Me passing through all of reality from beginning to very end is how my neshama can pick up all the pieces of the light bulb. But I have a lifespan of I don't know how long, whatever. Ashkenazi genes, perhaps not so long. Okay, who knows, right? So my lifespan is as long as it is. How many light bulb pieces am I picking, or if I pick up if I get one of the light bulbs, or I put together a couple of the light bulbs, but I'm not getting very far. But then I have to pick that up next time around to do the rest to do more work, and again and again and again. I'm only here to do the work that I'm supposed to do during this time period, right? So no, I'm not responsible, right? Right now, little old me. Right now, I'm working on the 250 watt light bulb, right? So because I started with a 200 watt light bulb, what am I expected to accomplish during this life? If I can get to 250 watts, I'll get a big pat on the back, right? So no one's expecting me to get to the 5 million watt light bulb, because no one can get to I can't get to a 5 million watt light bulb anyway, because the only way to do that is to exist until the end of time. And that's not, I can't have that. I can't have that. If I existed, once upon a time, we had much longer lifespans. You could accomplish a lot more, and you could also destroy a lot more in one lifespan. The fact that I only last for a certain amount of time means I can only do so much damage, and then we start all over again. And more hischachos, right? We're starting all over again all the time. And even the fact that I'm only going to be here for so long gives me urgency to start again. I messed up. I have to fix it, because how much time do I have left to accomplish anything? But because of that, you have this idea of miluyim. We're connected to that. You have this idea of miluyim. But he's making a very important point over here, which is fundamental in the Kisvei Arizal, and it's developed by the Rashash as well. This idea that every moment, as it's experienced by any given individual, is completely and totally unique, right? So you and I are both sitting here in the same moment in time, but I'm sitting here and you're sitting there, and we're not occupying the same space, and we're not doing the same thing. And I have what I'm supposed to do right now, and you have what you're supposed to do right now, even though it's the same Zman, right? We can both be sitting in the same Shabbos, right? But I have a different light bulb piece. I have Shlomo Pill's light bulb piece to work on right now, and you have your light bulb piece to work on right now. And the same is true for me day to day, Shabbos to Shabbos, Tefillah to Tefillah, mitzvah to mitzvah, right? When 15 mishulachim pile out of a tiny little car in front of my house, and they're all standing in line, right? So each one I'm giving to, one after the other, right? It's all today, and it's all me, but each one is a different mitzvah tzedakah, and each one is a different light bulb piece for various reasons. The Rashash goes so far as to explain that it's a mind-boggling piece, and it involves a lot of math, and I'm very bad at that. But the Rashash goes so far as to explain how if you take all the spheres and all the subspheres and all the subspheres, etc., what you end up is 600,000 pieces of spheres, basically 600,000 individual nitzotzos, basically of individual sub particular aspects.
Bottom sub. Why did it stop?
Huh?
Why did it stop?
Because it corresponds, he says, to the 6,000 years of avodah. And he actually sets up mathematically how each day of the 6,000 year period, which is like the Zman that the earth exists within a state of work to get from beginning to end point, each day. Yeah, exactly. Right. Again, this is why the math is hard to. I don't understand the math. But he takes basically 600,000 pieces of spheres and fits them into 6,000 years. It's not it's more, right? Okay. But basically what that means is that each day is a particular tiny little shard of all of the aura that's shining throughout the entire expanse of temporal reality of time from beginning to end. Right? So that each day there's an avodah for today, because there's a particular aura that has to be revealed today. And that particular aura itself is divided up into all the pieces that correspond to all of the individual people who each have something specific to do to that day. And for each of those people, that little bit of aura that they have for today, that gets divided into thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of individual seconds and individual actions and individual opportunities and so on and so forth. Each one being a tiny, tiny little shard of that light bulb that we're trying to put back together, or that person is trying to put back together, which is part of a bigger light bulb that everyone is trying to put back together that day, which is part of an even bigger light bulb that everybody is trying to put together over the course of all of history. So that means just
is it just on an individual level or also on a collective?
No, also on a collective level. Also on a collective, meaning my light bulb and your light bulb, right? This is the idea of tikun, right? My light bulb is related to your light bulb and your light bulb. So the light bulb can't be completed unless my light bulb is done and your light bulb is done. So all the light bulbs are interacting with each other. The Leshem describes a very, very beautiful terminology. He talks about this again in terms of the broad expanse of history and every single generation over the course of history, and each and every member of that generation within history, and each and every individual member's experience of their lifetime and day to day, second to second. All of the little pieces have to fit together, or will fit together, or are supposed to fit together, and to build the complete and total picture. But the picture is fractal. We've talked about this, right? The holographic principle, that the big picture, my individual picture, is just a small version of the big picture. Because just like the big picture is made up of 600,000 Jewish souls putting all the pieces back together, my picture is made up of me putting pieces together over the course of 60 years or 70 years or 80 years or whatever it happens to be. And that picture that I'm putting together over the course of 80 years, that's just a bigger version of the picture of what I'm trying to put together today, right? Or this year. And this year is just a bigger picture of what I'm trying to put together today. And today is just a bigger picture of what I'm trying to put together right now. Right, and so on. So really, you can zoom in or out, and what does that mean? We've talked about this in other contexts also. That what does that mean? That means that the value of paying attention to specifically what's in front of me, because what's in front of me is a whole thing, right? At any given moment, exactly what's in front of me is a whole thing. Is a unique nitzos, is a unique nitzos that has fallen into klipa that only right now can be fixed. Only right now can I see something valuable and see HaKadosh Baruch Hu within this moment, in this experience for me. And even if you see it for you, I still have to see it for me, because me seeing it is different from you seeing it, and on and on. And this is why. So every tefillah is different, every person is different, every moment is different, and each one has its own unique thing to do. And we put it all together, and that brings the baseline tikun into lasted level, into the full fixing of the giant light bulb. V'kashar yastimu kol habirurim b'tachlis hashleimos, and once you complete and you put back together all of these and you've completed all of these birurim in a complete way. V'yasuknu v'yasalu kol hanitzotim b'shiver kelim hanimtzam l'mata b'klipa, and you've elevated and clarified all of these individual nitzotos that have fallen into klipa due to the shevirah. Azai kol harisha kula kashan tichla. So then all evil falls away, because what is evil? Evil is just a sense that there's something other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's some force, there's some value, there's some need, there's some ability to do anything connected to Ratzon Hashem. It all goes away, because the very definition of being mevared all the nitzotos means that I've clarified that everything is just Ratzon Hashem. V'nizke l'geula shlema l'tikun hashalim. And through that's how you, right? So then you arrive at what the Rambam brings as the end, as the pasuk to describe Yemos HaMashiach, which is all of reality, Mola Haaretz De'as Hashem, that all of reality is filled with knowledge of God, because everything just screams and will be clearly illuminating 5 million watt light bulb.
One is on the last paragraph. I'm assuming that's probably the deep meaning of what it means. I mean, a lot of people say it, but I guess this puts perspective when it says, I think that Avraham Avinu came with his days full. I think it was Avraham Avinu, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's probably what it means. Like, he didn't really miss moments.
Could be.
Right. I'm just thinking about in this last thing. So how could a person really honestly say that he believes in Mashiach is going to come? If ultimately, if you break this down and with this knowledge that we're not, and I'm not talking about personal on an individual, I'm talking about on a collective level. I mean, it's very not likely.
You mean because how do we get there?
Because you have to have a lot of faith that then every Jew out there is let's say even for a moment, going to be perfect?
Good. That's a very good question. I think there are two. I think there are two answers to that question. Answer number one to that question is there are multiple ways that Mashiach can come. One is we all get it right. The other is we all get it so dismally wrong that the only way to get things there's an intervention. Exactly so. Right. Or again, to put it slightly differently.
So then you have to have such bad thing because there's always going to be some good people.
Yeah, but put it but I think it's actually much more fundamental than why is belief in Mashiach coming so fundamental? Like, why is it actually important, especially given this description of what Mashiach really is? Why is it actually so fundamental?
I mean, you could say that even if everybody just believed Mashiach would come, that would be enough, and Mashiach would come. But even for that, to believe that everybody else is going to be believing.
So I think in this sense, believing or trusting in the ability of Mashiach to come at any moment, and the fact that Mashiach will come. Right? Again, there are different ways to understand, especially the Rambam's formulation. Do I have to believe that Mashiach can come at every moment, or do I have to believe, or do I have to trust at every moment that Mashiach is coming? Right? That's an important distinction, and I don't think we're obligated necessarily to follow to take the read that I'm obligated to think he can come at any moment. There are too many Midrashei Chazal and Gemaras that talk about Mashiach coming at specific times of year, etc., etc.
The other way is to believe that he is coming, but not necessarily now.
At every single moment, I believe that he is coming,
but not necessarily now. But he will come.
Right. The Gemara says that Mashiach's going to come in Nisan. Right. So now it's Nisan. That's good. But after Pesach this year, I probably don't have to think. Whatever. These are complex. Right. These are super complex topics that the sources don't point in one direction to. So what are you telling me I'm supposed to believe exactly? But aside from that, the belief that Mashiach is coming or is going to come is really a belief in the timelessness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if God created the world with a purpose, and the purpose is Achros HaYamim, right? I mean, Mashiach is by definition the world reaching its purpose. Right. And if God is really God, then there isn't any way possible that the world can't reach its purpose. Because unlike me, when I want to build a house, there's lots of things preventing me from building the house. I have an idea, I want a house, and I have a picture of the house in my head, and there's 1,000,001 things that prevent the house from happening.
What about the fact that there were times in Torah that says, for sure, one time I think was that Shem was thinking about maybe just destroying the world and starting over.
Yeah.
But you're saying even that's still in Mashiach would still come. It would just be in the next world he created.
Yeah. Yeah. So it has to be that if God is really God and God is absolutely and totally limitless and everything takes place within God and there is no resources that are outside of God's control and time is not an issue and resources are not an issue and control is not an issue. All of these things are not issues that prevent or delay what I want to happen from happening. So then how can it possibly be that I intend for this to happen, or that God intends for this to happen and it won't happen? It must be so. To deny that.
Well, you just said I don't think I've ever heard that. Or if I did, I never internalized it. That's really what it says. I'm mentioning about that Penimiyus HaMashiach. The Mashiach's gonna come. But everybody, I feel like growing up, everybody's taught that Mashiach will come at any moment. Yes, every day. Yes, every day.
Yes.
That's still different.
Yeah. Now, I want to hedge that just a little bit because while I think that's an easier pill to swallow. I also don't necessarily have such a big problem with also saying the whole nature of this, which again is if we're saying that talking about Mashiach is really speaking about God's infinitude.
Right. So then you can pull it off.
You can pull it off. No, yeah. Right. Exactly. There's nothing. Right. You can pull it off immediately. Really, even though everything around me screams it can't happen right now. There's too many things not done yet, etc., etc. But I guess there's some way for infinite, all-powerful being to make that happen anyway, somehow. But if I'm operating in sort of, the world works the way it works, then it's going to happen. It has to happen. It must happen. It will happen. But we're far. We have a lot. We have work to do.
But also, like, it kind of wasn't, because that's what we're talking about.
No, it's not. It's on its own. But Okay. So in any case, good. So that's the end of Hakdama Dalet and the end of Olam Hatikun. And this is a good place to stop before a few weeks off for Pesach, because the whole next section, we're now moving into another set of Hakdamas, another char, and we're going to get into a deeper discussion of the Esher Sefiros, and that's going to take a good chunk of time, but it will massively increase what we understand about all this stuff. We're going to take a very deep dive into understanding the spheres. Okay.
I feel like